Welcome to this media availability edition of Talking Hoosier Baseball. This will be in two parts. The first will be the Bellarmine postgame media from the Tuesday night game. The second will be the after practice media availability previewing the USC series. The Hoosiers run-ruled Bellarmine on Tuesday night. Indiana used 7 pitchers, each with 1 shutout inning, while the Bats put up 13 runs, including a Tyler Cerny inside the park homer and a Cooper Malamazian grand slam. Cole Gilley got the win with 1 inning in the first, and Grant Holderfield pitched a clean inning in the middle of the contest. After the Tuesday night game, the media spoke with Holderfield, first baseman Jake Hanley, and head coach Jeff Mercer. On Wednesday, following practice, the media met with Gilley, Cerny, and Mercer. So, Grant, can you just kind of talk about you guys, all basically pitched an inning today, kind of just the attitude you guys kind of all take one inning at a time, and how you guys pursued today?
Yeah, it was really just, as a staff, we wanted to do our job today. 1 inning at a time, pass the baton off to the next guy, and just fill up, attack hitters, and let our defense and hitters take care of the rest. But I think we did a really good job commanding the zone, getting outs, and obviously when you get a shutout, that's a pretty good result. So, yeah, just doing our job.
Grant, for the young guys on the staff, how important is the game like today?
Oh, it's super important. Getting reps under your belt is a big thing, especially as a young underclassman. That's huge in a college environment with a lot of good hitters. So these reps mean everything. And it was good to see some young guys get in.
How do games like this help you guys prepare for better competition? When obviously your stuff is going to work against a team like this. How do you take that mentality and take it into some upper-level Big Ten competition?
Yeah, absolutely. Our mentality, we try not to change it on a game-to-game basis, and we try to stay the same approach and stick to the plan. And I think we did that very well today, so we're going to roll that into this weekend against a good USC team, and we did the job on it.
Jake, the Bats were kind of quiet in the latter games against UCLA, and then they kind of exploded out of the gates today. Was there anything that you guys wanted to focus on, maybe making adjustments after the weekend?
I think we just came out with a different mentality. I think that when you go out and play an out west team like UCLA, those arms are top notch. Not to say Bellarmine's not, but when you go face guys that can land 3 pitches for strikes every at bat, you're constantly on your toes, adjusting. Coming in here, you kind of have a better idea of what you're capable of. I think later in those UCLA games, we kind of figured it out. It just took us a while. So, I think we're off on the right foot, and hit us on a lot of confidence right now.
Grant, you've won 7 of 9 now. What's been clicking as of late for the team?
I think we're just playing all facets of the game super well. The pitchers doing a really good job on the mound. Defenders feeling it really well, and the bats are awesome. So just all 3 facets clicking at the right time. So.
Jake, you're a left-handed hitting first baseman from Mason, Ohio, and you walk up to painted black. Is there a long-time red that maybe you looked up to, or if not, who are some other players that you model your game after?
Yeah, that's Joey Votto. My dad loved that song growing up, and that's really the only walk-up song I can remember from going to Redskins as a kid, so I thought one.
Jake, you mentioned the high-level arms coming from UCLA, facing USC this weekend. Is there anything you guys are going to do in your off days or in practices to kind of prepare for a team like that? Would you expect more arms like UCLA?
We'll probably just go over the profiles. If we're getting a lefty on Friday or righty, just plan accordingly and adjust from there. But our approach is still the same as it was last week and the week before that. We just got to be consistent with how we play the game.
Just any jokes with Tyler with this inside the park home run?
He's out of breath, that's for sure. But no, that's just you don't see those very often, so it's always fun when it happens, especially in a game, especially early in the first 2 innings. So that was a fun one.
For the second midweek, you've had Cooper playing shortstop. Obviously, you had him doing something different defensively, plus he swung the bat pretty well today. So can you just talk about Cooper and his development?
Yeah, you hit the nail there on the head. He has really developed into a really good player. He was a good defender in high school, was a really highly recruited kid coming through, but he's become a tremendous defender. He's good, and he's just gotten better and better. He's really changed in a lot of ways the course of the season at third base defensively, and He's a great thrower. He's a great thrower from different angles, and just kind of wanted to take a look at him, at shortstop and kind of see. We worked a little bit on it last night when we got back. We had to practice because it wasn't an off day, and then wanted to see him through BP today and talk to him and talk to Tyler a little bit about him playing some short. I don't know if it's necessarily a long-term deal, but I'm not saying that it's not either. A lot of it's predicated on the fact that Will Moore is also a tremendous defender, and he made some great plays at third base. That double play turn was outstanding. So, we've played really good defense in spurts, and there are times that we haven't, and we're kind of hitting our stride a little bit. We're playing pretty good baseball all the way around. We're probably a week or two away from getting some arms back that are going to really help us in trying to find different ways for us to take that next step. And a big part of that is being able to take care of the ball better across the board in the infield, and seeing if Cooper gives us a chance to do that. I thought they did a good job tonight. He's a natural shortstop by kind of by trade, and learned third base and did a great job doing that. But if he gives us a chance to do that, and Tyler's played second base and played a really good second base, made a couple nice plays up the middle today. So just in general, kind of taking a look at it and see what we think. And now that we're back on turf, if you ever move somebody, you're not moving one guy, you're moving three. And so you have to make sure if you want to do that, you're putting everybody in the best position to be successful. And so having a day yesterday to practice, being home, being back on turf, and then having 2 additional days this week before we go this weekend, kind of felt like it was maybe the best time to just take more of a look at it.
Coach, how important is it to have a first inning like you did where you score 5 runs and you roll out 7 pitchers that all get to pitch with a lead?
Well, I was kind of joking with a couple of the coaches is that every game is tough to win. They're all difficult to win. But it's important for us to be able to get different guys in the game, and it's important for us to be able to, on the mound and positionally. We have a lot of young. I love Decker. I love Koski. Those guys are good players. They're going to be great players for us into the future. They need to get on the field, and that's a big part of our program development. Is we should be capable of winning games and getting guys in there and keeping a rotation going. And on the mound, the same thing. We need to be able to get different guys in the game. We can practice all day long, but it's not the same as getting out there and doing it in real time. And so that has been a point of consternation, and at times it's like if we'll get out there and play the way that we're capable of playing, we should be able to do just that. You should be able to go get your 3 outs before they score 3 runs, and we should be able to get a bunch of different guys in the game. And then our midweek live at bats are, we're going to talk about it a bunch. They're really important for us. So Wednesday we'll have a bunch of live at bats. Those are really important for us to be able to work with guys and see how guys are coming along. But we got to be able to do it in the game. So scoring, it's nice that and obviously we have our role in that as a coaching staff too. And okay, we can try the same thing, till the cows come home. If it's not working, we have to change. And so being able to go more where we put an adult in there to get it off the ground, and then hopefully we can build a bit of a lead and everybody kind of settles in, and then you can kind of do it differently. So that part has helped, and having Gilley to be able to just get it off the ground, having Crafty up front, everything's fine, and then everyone else then can hopefully just kind of settle in and play. And I remember when I was a freshman, I remember those. I remember, every time you step on the field in a real game, it's a big moment. And so you want to make sure you put those guys in a position to be successful. So it's really nice when you come out and score a few runs, you get a couple shutdowns, you get able to kind of extend it a little bit. It was a really good day. We played really well, we got a bunch of guys in, and that's what those games are designed to do, to continue to add depth to the team on the mound, to the position players, for not just a future as in next year, but this year. You don't always know what you have until you get to that time where you get them in, and then they can have some success, and then you're building also for the back half of the season, matchups, pinch hits, all those different things. It's hard as a coach to know exactly what to do and who to put in where when you don't have some days like today where you can kind of see them play a little bit.
Coach, with the result today in the game today, what does that tell you about the growth of this team over maybe the last month or so?
Yeah, we've improved tremendously in the last month, and a big part of it is you learn your team, and you can put guys in better positions to be successful, and that's the expectation of a coach. It's not. It shouldn't be applauded. That should be the expectation. You put your team in a better position to be successful. And another part of it is there's expectations, and there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes for a team when you're working with young people, and especially, be candid, when you get into draft years and you get into all that different stuff. There's just a lot of moving pieces that go on, and so we don't get off to a great start, and then you're kind of struggling, and then you're thinking about it, and so you just get better as you go, and then going and playing against really good teams. It's the best way to get better, and that's why I told the guys, we went and played well against a really good team on the road. I would imagine UCLA hosts a regional, and they'll be they're a really good team, and we went and played them to essentially a statistical tie over the weekend. Did a good job, and I said, okay, there's no participation trophies or ribbons or whatever it is, but that has to be the expectation and standard in which we now play. You don't go play well against a really good team, and you just kind of, some breaks don't go your way, or you don't execute well enough to win it, fine. But now that has to be the standard in which you play the game, and then you move forward from there. And that's what we did. We played today like we played this weekend, and it's, in the modern age of college baseball, I think that the thing I really appreciate about UCLA is they were consummate professionals. They were class. They had great dignity. They played the game the right way. There was no funny business, and that's kind of rare in college baseball. And so you're always trying to get your team to play like that, just to be a gentleman and play hard and kick somebody's butt and shake their hands and go home. And so I thought that was a great lesson to learn. But once you go play them, you need to become that. And the only way to do that is to go and do it. So we played today like we played this weekend. We were just playing a different opponent, but the reality is you're playing against your own standard, your own expectations, the way you're taught to play the game. And when you go and do that, good things will eventually happen.
Corbin Dickerson now has the sole lead for hits with 40 in the Big Ten. How has he become such an impactful player in his first year of the program?
Well, I would say, first of all, there's a talent level that you can be a great coach and you can write the lineup card, but if the kid's not talented enough, then it's genetics. And so he's a very talented player. He was a high school draft pick, and so that's a huge piece of it. The second piece being is he's very coachable, and he's a quick learner. He's very smart. I sat down with him initially in his recruiting meeting, and his mom and dad. It took about 2 seconds to realize you're talking to a really intelligent kid, and he really wanted a system. He wanted a process. He wanted to be taught how we do our things. Not that it's right or wrong, but he wanted someone to really regiment it out for him, and that's what he was looking for. And so you got a talented kid who's really smart and knows exactly what he wants. And so then you can work with that guy. He's available to learn. You guys have heard me say it a million times. You've got to be available to learn. You've got to be engaged in learning. If you think you have it all figured out, or if you're a rockhead and you don't want to listen to anybody, and you keep doing the same wrong things, it doesn't matter how talented you are. So he's smart. He wants to learn, and what he's capable of is when something goes like this weekend, he didn't have a great weekend. They pitched him really well. And they can really pitch. Typically when someone says you have a 5-pitch mix, they have a 2-pitch mix and 3 pitches that are throwaway pitches, right? Those guys had a 5-pitch mix, and so they could diagnose what you did wrong and then throw to it, and then go to the next guy and do the same thing. So they were able to really get cutters away from him and really kind of open him up a little bit. And we talked about. We met for a little bit the other day and talked about some things I thought we needed to do, and he agreed, and he went out and worked on them today, and he was able to apply them. And so he wasn't facing the same guy, but what he's able to do is he's always able to learn. He's asking questions, he's coachable, he accepts teaching, and then he goes and applies it in real time. And so that guy can just keep growing. And so he's talented, he's smart, and if you have the ability to grow, then you can adjust to the game. So kudos to him. He's a great kid from an awesome family, and has obviously been a program-changing player for us this year.
One more.
Coach, Cole and Ryan on Friday, kind of a 1-2 punch, more of the same today. Do you anticipate them being kind of that Friday tandem going forward?
I do think that we've got a variety of guys that we can open with in based on kind of the matchup and what we like, and then be able to go to have everybody hot. And so I don't. It could be yes, that could be the case. There could be somebody else that we feel like is a better matchup. But what we'll try to do is what we've done is just kind of feel out the first 2-3 innings, and a lot of it is the feedback from the catchers. You can watch a bunch of pitches and watch games, but a lot of it is the feedback from the catchers, what they're seeing in the box, and then the swings that we're getting. And are we in a winning position? I think that's probably the biggest difference that we've managed is if we're not in a winning position, then you continue to push until you get into a winning position, either tied or up. And if you don't, then you don't take, not that you're not taking your shot, but you're pushing one inning at a time until we get into that position, and then you play your best hand. And that's something that we didn't do a good enough job of early on, and ultimately that's my responsibility. So I would say those two guys are in that mix, but Seabold is back in that same mix as well. And I think Holderfield, we didn't throw enough off speed with him at UCLA, and we kind of afterwards regretted that. And so in today he was really heavy off speed, did a really good job with it. So I think Holderfield's in that same position. I think Swanson's in a similar position where we can kind of open it and feel the way we want to go. But yeah, Kraft he was spectacular. It was really just supposed to be like a 1 to 2 inning open, and then we kind of talked about it afterwards, or in the middle of it. It was like he's rolling. They're not getting good swings. His stuff's really good. He's locating. Let's just kind of keep going until the game tells us it's done. And you look up and it's 4 1/3, and he was terrific. So there's a couple guys that could do that, him being one of them as well.
So Cole, as the veteran leader of this pitching staff, I know Coach has talked a lot about every pitcher needing to consistently land multiple pitches, especially off speed. Can you kind of talk about your role as a leader on this team, as someone who's been successful with that?
Yeah, I would just say what we've kind of focused on lately is just taking catch play more seriously, because that's where you get better. We started bringing the batters back out, putting plates out, and really like having your partners squat down and catch a few off-speed and even fastballs, like making sure you can locate your fastball, because if you can't locate the fastball, you're more than likely not going to be able to locate an off-speed pitch. And so if you can locate a fastball in, especially like if you can get in on hitters, then it's going to open up the rest of the plate with your off-speed. But just taking catch play more seriously, I think we've done a really good job the last week and a half, and obviously you can see the results a lot better.
Cole, it doesn't seem like anybody on the staff has a set role week to week. What's that like for a staff in a unit like that?
I think it's just everyone's got to be ready. You never know, and it's like I said, you must be ready, because when we need you to come in and pitch, like you got to be ready to go immediately. We can't let guys come in and all of a sudden you go ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, and all of a sudden it's a leadoff walk. Like you come in out of the pen, we need you to go strike 1 and get ahead, and it just sets the tone for the rest of the pitching staff coming in as well.
Is there like a physical difference as far as preparation goes with that?
I would say no. I mean, it's just you show up every day to the ballpark. It all starts in practice. Like you should show up every day for practice. Like it's going to take every pitch, and every pitch is going to help you win a championship. And if you take that mentality into a game, and it's second nature. You're doing it every day during practice.
Tyler, you started the season a little below your own expectations, but you've really caught fire the last month or so. What was stuff that you were working on, or maybe slight adjustments you've made to be able to catch fire the way you have?
I would say like the biggest thing is just the mental switch. I think early on the expectations are obviously high, pressure's there obviously, but I just got back the last couple of weeks of just being more confident in myself, and just remembering like what kind of player I am. Like I know I'm capable of doing these things the right way, and I think right now I'm in a good spot mentally and ready to keep going, keep it on the same page.
Tyler, you slid over to second base yesterday. Is there a difference in comfortability at shortstop versus second base for you?
I've played both positions a lot in my life. Obviously, I played short more recently, and I played second base all freshman year. So I'm comfortable wherever the team needs me to play. I'm going to be ready and give my best effort over there, wherever that may be.
Tyler, was that your first Inside the Park home run?
It was, yeah, probably in a while. Probably since like 5U, probably. That's probably the last time I had one. I was, if you could tell from one of the videos, I was pretty gassed. After that, I needed an oxygen tank for about 2 innings after that. So.
You like that or being on SportsCenter more?
I think SportsCenter's pretty cool. And I didn't have to run that much for the 2 SportsCenter plays. So I'd rather hit my home runs over the fence, but I'll take it. Home run's home run.
Tyler, you talked about that additional confidence. How does just making those plays in the field maybe even give you that confidence at the plate as well?
For sure. When you make a play like that, your energy's high. You feel kind of cool, right? I mean, it comes with that. So it just gives you an extra sense of confidence if you don't already have that. Making those plays, if that's what helps me do that, then it's cool.
Second straight weekend now playing a team from the West Coast. Is there a difference in play style between them and some of the Midwest teams?
I would say, defensively, all those West teams are very, very defensively sound and fundamental, and really smooth with their hands and the ball and the infield for sure. That's one thing we noticed about UCLA that we're trying to we've practiced a little bit this week. Once we got back, just kind of being more fluid and smooth with all the actions, kind of taking what we learned from them, trying to bring it here to the Midwest. But yeah, that's one of the big things I think I noticed from playing UCLA last week.
Yeah, Cole, we've seen you do 6-inning starts, 2-inning relief stints, and coming into other open games or closed games. Is there any mentality switch, or is there a specific intensity you bring to maybe coming in the 8th versus opening a game?
Mentality-wise, no. It's just go and do the job, do whatever you need to do for the team to win. Obviously, I would say, coming out of the pen, and especially in 8th inning, and it's a tie ball game like it was against Ohio State, and it was close, and obviously you have quite a bit of adrenaline, so it's just maintaining that and turning the adrenaline into energy and just like controlled aggression. And so, but the mentality stays the same. It's just go out, compete each pitch, win each pitch, and don't be afraid. Like, just constantly be on the attack.
Cool. I read an article about Coach Mercer's reaction when he saw you in the portal and some of the nerves he had reaching back out to you. What was that like from your side of it when you saw Coach Mercer reach back out?
I was pumped. So I was like, as soon as I entered the portal, I was like, if IU's interested, like, I want to go to IU. It was a dream come true. We put all the past to the side. Like, it was, like he said, it was no hard feelings. It was just at that time it wasn't going to be a right fit. And I'm just really happy that he gave me another opportunity to come back and play for my dream school.
Any types of jokes between you and him about that?
No, we haven't talked about it too much. It's kind of been more just talking about the team and just trying to find ways to keep winning ball games.
Coach, kind of an interesting dichotomy is that your offense is very young. Over 70% of the plate appearances have been by freshman and sophomore. Your pitching staff, over 70% of the batters faced have been by juniors and seniors. Is there any kind of color as to how it kind of has developed that way and what it means for your team?
Well, I think the draft is always a huge part of shaping your roster. And then, last year losing a bunch of position players, you're kind of forced to. You have to have an identity as a program as to what you believe in and how you build on an annual basis. And we've tried to build it through high school players predominantly, and so we've invested in the recruitment of those players for a long time. And the issue with the pitching staff is when you lose a high school player to the draft, and then you lose 2 sophomore eligible pitchers, you lose Foley and Reisdorf to the draft, is now you're losing those guys a year or 2 or sometimes 3 years earlier than you anticipated. So you have to impact that via the transfer portal when you lose sophomores. The position players that we've lost via the draft, we lost them on schedule. So now you're losing a junior, so now you're able to have either a guy that's on campus or a sophomore step in. So it's a younger group, but it's on schedule. And that's how we don't end up with typically any major voids in the position player group. When you lose a high school arm and a sophomore draft eligible pitchers, you're not going to be as on schedule. Not that it's bad, you're just going to have to impact it a different way. So for us this year, honestly, we were able to go get Seabold and Gilley, and it's worked out really well for us. So those guys were good elements for us. The game has changed so much in the last couple of years. 4 or 5 years ago, the most difficult guy to get in the country was a good hit tool guy, and I think partially because when they had the shortened draft, and then you had a lot of conference only weekends, you had all your arms stacked on the weekend, and offenses got beat up, and then you guys' confidence got shaken, and so you kind of had a weird lull there in offensive players. And it's kind of been the opposite now. The hardest thing in the country right now to get is enough good pitching and pitching depth. With the shortened draft, you end up having pitchers still get drafted no matter what. They're going to get drafted at high school. As soon as they're eligible in college, they're going to get drafted as quickly as they can. And you have more bats in college because of the shortened draft. I know I'm not answering directly, but you end up in the position that you're in a little bit based around that for us, which is how do you have enough talent on both sides of the ball to be able to not only win in the short term, but also to win at the end of the season, win in the conference tournament, win in a regional, hopefully win a regional and go to super regional. And so that there's a balance of you need to be fundamental and tough and all those kind of things, but you got to have great players, and you got to have guys that are going to hit the ball to the ballpark, are going to play great defense and expand the defensive areas, great athletes, and you got to have guys that are going to strike guys out at the end of the game. And so for us, that's going to be primarily in high school baseball, unless you land on a real gem like a Luke Sennard, or you land on a real gem like Corbin Dickerson, who gives you that end of the game home run power, end of the game strikeout power via the portal. And so you cast out and you project out what you think your roster looks like, and then you do the best that you can to navigate the draft. So the position player group is on schedule to grow up over the next couple of years, just because we've been able to navigate the draft well. The way the pitching staff was impacted this past year, we went and brought in a few older guys, and then we've really tried to develop those young arms behind them. Braden Thomas and Telfer and Brummel. I mean, there's some really talented young arms in there, and sometimes those guys have done well, and sometimes they've really struggled. But we've tried time and time again to develop them to prepare us to be able to have power stuff at the end of a game, at the end of the season. And so that's where you have an older group on the mound up front, and they're doing a great job. They're pitching their tails off right now. But to your point is you're going to have to get some of those young guys that have stuff, big stuff. We need to get ADP back squared away. We need to get Yarberry back in there. We need to get Brummel needs to develop and advance, and Braden Thomas and some of those young guys that have stuff, they need to impact it. So it will get there, but that's why the pitching is a little bit off schedule when you lose Sennard and those guys maybe a little bit early.
Coach, when you're looking at how to deploy your pitching staff over the span of a weekend, what specifics are you looking at in certain situations? When to use the guy, where do you use the guy, and maybe who is best in that situation?
A lot of it is you're watching a ton of video throughout the week, and by we, I mean Coach Glant, and then we sit down. I'm not taking any credit for, Coach Rutherford does all the offensive game planning, and Dustin does all the pitching stuff. So we'll sit down and he'll kind of navigate past, and you're looking at trends, right? Is there a primary right-handed hitting group? Hey, 4, 5, 6 is all right-handed. I think this is a really good path for Telfer here. If we get to this in the fourth inning after our start, this is a good window for him. Okay, the game worked out that way. That's where you're going to go put him in there. Or there's a lefty grouping. I think this lefty grouping is good for this guy. Let's be ready for this window. And so you're kind of game planning beforehand, and you know a lot more now than you knew at the beginning. And you're kind of, you really got a lot of guesswork at the beginning of the year. But you're looking at windows and to navigate. Some teams want the ball out over the plate. Some teams want the ball close to them. Some teams are one-piece rotators. Some guys are really good manipulators. So change-ups can be really good. And for some guys, change-ups are terrible. There were some guys I thought Holderfield should have used his change-up more. But I didn't think the change-up was going to be a great matchup against UCLA, and Dustin agreed. Although I thought, who was it, 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, the changeup was a really good matchup for a team, and we threw a bunch of them. So you're looking at the way all those things kind of to break down, but you can't just put a guy in there, and when you get against really good teams, you can't just put him in there and throw to his strength, because his strength may not be good enough to beat that team. And so there's a question of, is it his strength that's good enough, or is it their weakness that we have to attack? And so that helps you. So you're looking at pass, you're looking at handedness, and you're looking at is his strength going to be good enough to win it, or do we need to attack somebody's weakness? And then, again, the midweek games are really important. And it's really important for our position guys to go play well, to take care of the ball, and to go play the way they're capable of playing. because it allows us to be able to have a little bit of breathing room to get some different guys in the game on the mound and begin to find a path. Braden Thomas comes in the game, last night and throws all sliders. Holding with sliders. Well, that's not an accident. We didn't do that on accident. That's on purpose, because you're going to face a left-handed grouping, and we haven't done a good enough job getting lefties out. So how do you get lefties out? With the left-handed slider. So how do you get a guy to throw a slider? You go throw 20 of them until you can land it and you can throw it. Well, you got to do those things. Well, you got to have enough breathing room to let a guy walk a guy and make a mistake and get out of it, And so it just takes all of those things. Our Wednesday live at bats, we do those, and those are really important. When you're able to talk to a guy and walk him through it and make an adjustment. Jacob Vogel was really good today. Learned a changeup. He threw a really good one. Threw a couple of cutters and a really good changeup. And he's starting to creep back into the low 90s again. And so hopefully he's going to be up this weekend. And so then, you're asking Corbin Dickerson, how did the changeup look? He said, hey, man, the changeup looked a lot like UCLA Saturday guys changeup, which is music to my ears because that guy was a witch out there. I mean, he was like Kyle Hendricks out there throwing that thing. He was really tough. So it's a great comp. Can you talk to the hitters and get some feedback? And so all those things go into it, trying to create a game plan that says, hey, I think this is our path to split this game up and have success. And the last thing I would say is that if you're going to do an opener, and sometimes we start as an opener and it becomes a start, kind of like last weekend with Kraft, which was great. But a lot of times your opener is to set up your second guy. And so you're trying to flip a guy around handedness. You're trying to have the opposite impact. So if it's going to be, let's say you started a left-handed, let's say you started Gooby, right? Started Gutas. You want to go lefty with ride to set up a righty sinker baller, or you would do a righty four-seamer to set up a lefty. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a window, and they don't know who the second guy or third guy is going to be, but can you create a window where if a guy had all week to prepare for this guy, he may not be as effective. But if you got 3 minutes to prepare for this guy, I now extended his outing from 3 innings to 5 innings because you're not as prepared. And a lot of times there's all those things that go into it as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but it all comes down to the same thing. It's like, can you attack with multiple pitches for a strike? And when you're given an opportunity to make outs, we have to take outs defensively. If you don't do those two things, if you give away free bases and you don't take care of the ball defensively, then the whole thing falls apart. And you can have the best plan in the world, but it stinks when you walk the first two guys and then you throw a bunt into right field. Like, it doesn't matter how much we play him, that ain't going to work.
Coach, what do you think you and your team kind of learned out in LA that last weekend in preparation for another California Big Ten newcomer this weekend in USC?
They're going to throw strikes. I think you're going to have to hit your way out of it. That's a big one. And sometimes we're leaving walks, I think, and so we'll be patient. They're taught to be patient, but you're going to have to hit your way out of it. I think one of their starters has 31 innings and 2 walks, so he's not going to give it to you. You're going to have to hit your way out of it, and at the same time, you can't swing your way. You can't cover 17 inches, 3 height zones, and 4 pitches at the same time. So they force you to really. There's so much pressure on you in the strike zone. But nothing's ever necessarily in the middle of the strike zone. So you have to be selective in the strike zone, which is a bit unique. And then you have to know your own weakness, because a lot of those guys, they're going to be able to get to your weakness, which is different than your weakness, and they can do both of them. And that's a unique element. Offensively, I thought we were really good last night. It's not shocking after coming off of seeing really good pitching. And then you come back and it's like, oh, that's just a regular fastball and a regular breaking ball. And they don't have a cutter. They don't have 2 different changeups. And so you're a little better than that. So that's the first thing. You understand. I think the big thing that I take from it is that there are people on earth that play defense at an incredibly high level, and they're the same age as us. And so sometimes I know that when coach says, like, I expect us to be able to play a higher level of defense than sometimes that we play, and maybe it seems a little bit unrealistic. Sometimes it's nice to go watch somebody play the game at a high level, at a fast pace, all the time, in consecutive days. So I think you'll learn and understand and appreciate defense at a really high level when you go play those guys. And then the element of the small ball is how much that is in their wheelhouse. So when there's a runner on third base, that guy's coming in. When it's first and third, they're going to run a play and they're going to execute it. And you have to be prepared to execute it as well. Hold the run game and your picks and all the little nuance of the game that sometimes gets a little bit lost when you're not forced into the middle of it. Those things, or you have to capitalize on those. I've said this the last couple of days. Adding the West Coast schools to the Big Ten is going to make Big Ten baseball so much better in short order. I think it's going to happen faster than people realize, to be honest with you. And I think adding the Midwest schools to the West Coast is going to help them too. Just some of the guys in the Midwest, you look at us in Maryland and Illinois, that'll hit 3 or 4 homers in a hurry, right? And so you're going to have to be able to manage, the 3, 4, 5 homer games from them, and we're going to have to learn to manage the defense and the different style of pitching. I think the combination of those two is going to make the league a lot better. I think this year and even into next year, I think it will happen faster than most people realize, just because of those elements. And sometimes if you don't see it, if you don't see that kind of baseball, you don't know. You just it's so far away from the kid in the Midwest. And so, but once you get used to that, I think it'll make everybody better. It certainly will make us better.
With how well Wiggins has gotten on base this year, just how has that influenced the success of your entire lineup, really?
Yeah, when Andrew and I talked about this weekend, when he's in the middle of the field and he's on base, when he's taking walks, hit by pitches, and hitting the ball in the middle of the field, he sets up. You saw it yesterday. He leads off with a walk, has a long at bat, walks. Devin hammers one for an out. Corbin doubles, and we're off and running. Right, 1 run in, guy on second base. He's a great base runner. He's an aggressive base runner. He's quick. He's a good runner. He's not an elite runner, but he's quick and sudden for a big guy. And so he can steal bases, and there's a threat of that. So he sets up the entire offense that way. He's also trying to learn how to hit, right? So there's that initial phase of I'll walk, and then people are going to force you to make contact. And so he's trying to learn how to be more aggressive in certain situations and whatnot. But yeah, when his approach is good and he's in the middle of the field and he's taking his walks and in his zone, like he sets up the entire offense for success. He's done a really good job with it, and he's getting better as he goes. It's a big expectation. He hasn't been an everyday player. You're hitting lead off. The expectation is you're on base a ton. You're hitting in front of Devin, and so you always want to be on base in front of Devin and all that stuff. So he's learning and growing and done a good job.
What was the thought process like taking 2 kind of preseason firm starters and putting them into flex roles, and how has that kind of brought some continuity in a different way to the staff?
Yeah, the big fear in the preseason was that we were gonna end up being close in a bunch of games, but not have enough to finish them, and end up losing too many close games. And that's exactly what happened. And we always do a pre-mortem, and that was one of my things. Is like if things go wrong, what will go wrong? And that was one of my first ones, is that we won't have enough to finish games, and so you end up losing games that you should win, or you could win, and then you end up always short, and you're chasing innings. You're chasing the last two or three innings of every game. So at a certain point, you just have to say, okay, well, we have to stop doing this. We have to stop losing by 2 and start winning by 2. And then once you do that, hopefully you get a little more confident and you feel better. So that was the initial idea behind it. But to do that, you still need one guy that can give you a length on a Saturday to break it up, so you don't have to use your pen every day. And so it's really given us it's a very comforting feeling to have a 2 or 3 run lead in the 5th inning, and to look down and be like, yeah, we got Cole Gilley in the bullpen. You feel pretty good about that. Or to have, hey, you have a 2-run lead in the 6th. We have Seabold down there, like that, a guy that's just been in the fight and can manage. And so when you move those guys down there, what it does is you stop losing the games that you should win, and then you're trusting your offense. The later in the week that you get, you're going to trust them more on a Sunday, and you're going to trust them more on a Tuesday. But what it also does too is it gives you a little bit of a coverage on the midweek, which is, we've had a tougher time. We try to use the young guys on the midweeks because, again, as Carl talked about, we did lose arms to the draft younger than you typically do. So you're trying to develop those young guys so you can win late in the season. But we have a tough time getting off the ground on a Tuesday. Just like, let's just get through the first 2 innings, and then we can settle on and play the game. And so by moving some of those guys into those roles, Now you're able to have him, okay, so he goes 4 on a Friday. He can come back and give you an open on a Tuesday and then still be up on a Friday and Saturday. So you're just, again, you're spreading the innings out. You're not getting 6 1/3 or 6 2/3 on a Friday, but you're getting those innings when you really need them. We need to get Tuesday off the ground, and we need to finish the game that we should win, whether it's a Friday or Saturday. And so by doing that, you're hitting a couple different aspects that are again, what does your team need? The team needs to be able to win our midweek games, and we need to finish their Fridays and Saturdays when we have a late. And so those guys have given us the opportunity to do that. And then over the course of the year, other guys develop. Swanson develops, and Crafty's getting back to Crafty's form, and Holderfield's done a really good job. And some of those other guys grow up, and then you're going to trust them later on this season.
Coach, can you describe this year's team in one word to me?
We're a dichotomy of sorts. We haven't been. We're inconsistent. I know I'm supposed to say something positive, but we are. We've been inconsistent. Yeah, we're inconsistent. We look like a top 25 team, and there are days we look like a really poor team. So that's a reflection of me. I mean, I'm the one in charge. So we're inconsistent. I think we've been a really good team the last 2 weeks. Prior to that, we were not. But I've always felt confident, even when I stood here in these same meetings, I always felt very confident that we would be a good team again. I didn't think that there's no structural flaw with the roster. Maybe some injuries, but there's nothing wrong with them. We didn't not cover a certain area. We're talented in its entirety. We're capable of being good. We've just been inconsistent. But I think over the last week or two, as some of those arms have filled roles, and as some of our position players have kind of just the emotional aspect of certain things have kind of settled back in again, I think we've become a much more consistent team, and I would like us to advance in that area. But I think we have, and I think we will.
Thanks,
but to this point, inconsistent.
How do you maintain that? I mean, you were saying that you're inconsistent, but from now moving forward, how do you keep that the way for the rest of the season?
Well, being home some helps. Just being able to practice helps, and I know we talked about it, but it's just a big deal. Like being able to run individual defense, team defense on the field 3 or 4 times with your legs underneath you, not coming off of a hard travel, is a big deal. And so being home, being able to practice makes you more consistent. I think getting control of the emotional roller coaster that is the beginning of a season is always it's always a nuanced conversation. Because if you're a coach and you walk in the locker room and you give everybody the rah-rah speech and you say, this is our house and we're going to protect it and everybody's going to try to take it from you and all that stuff, what you've done is you've now placed expectation on everybody, right? And like it or not, now everybody feels like they can't mess up because you've placed expectation on top of them, okay? Well, the other side is you come in and don't say anything and you feel like they come out flat and it's like, well, you didn't get them fired up. So sometimes it's just figuring out the temperature of your team. What is the right way to address them and help them to do well? So you got to figure out your team's temperature, and you got to deal with the outside noise of a group, right? You lose a couple of close games, and all of a sudden everybody, it's a human element. There's an emotional. There's all those things to it. So when you get control of the emotion, the world's not going to fall off its axis. The moon's not going to crash into the earth anytime soon. We're all going to be fine, and you begin to problem solve and advance. Then things can settle down. But you've got to bring levity and calmness and problem solving and ingenuity to get everybody pointed in the right direction. So being home, practicing is a really big deal. Figuring out your team's temperament is a really big deal, and then just problem solving. Just okay, these are the things that we're seeing. This is where the issue is. The only way I know how to solve any problem is just to go to work, and that means one at a time. It's one small hitting group at a time. It's one Wednesday pitching group at a time. It's one cuts and relays, at a time. Like you just have to keep working and keep advancing, and I think that's one reason our teams have historically gotten better over the course of the year. Is you just keep showing up and working, and we'll eventually solve enough problems that we can get there towards the end of this thing. There are seasons that we've started poorly. This one, And there are seasons we've started great. But for every team, there comes a point of adversity. For every team. Like I told the guys at the beginning of the year, we're going to lose 4 games in a row at some point, and everyone's going to say, fire the coaches, you guys stink. Everybody, all the players, turn in your jerseys, you all stink. And then we're going to win 4 of the next 5 games. Everyone's going to be like, we're going to Omaha. We're back on track. Everybody's like, give them raises, sign these guys forever, and give the players whatever they want. And within 2 weeks, it'll be like that. You just can't read into it. You just got to continue to advance and coach your team, and the players have to continue to advance and learn and grow. And so I think that's how you be consistent. You don't ride the waves with everything. It's a game. You'll learn, you'll get better, you improve, and at the end of this thing, you want to be the best team you can be in the last month or 6 weeks, going into playoff baseball and try to make your run.
All right, one more for Coach.
Coach, in UCLA, we didn't see Drew Burr, which is obviously a rarity. Is there anything going on there? Any news with him?
Yeah, Drew sustained an injury in his outing 2 weeks ago. His outing here on that Friday versus Ohio State. So he'll be out for a couple of weeks. Everything seems to be, so far, kind of probably best case scenario as to what we initially kind of feared. But hopefully we'll have him back here in a couple of weeks. And obviously he's a huge part of. He's our guy. So he's a huge part of not just on field, but leadership wise and character. He's an amazing guy. So hopefully back in a couple of weeks. But yeah, you feel bad and kind of took it on the chin there. But hopefully we'll get him back soon.
Indiana continues the long homestand Friday at 6 p.m. when Southern California comes to Bart Kaufman Field for the first of a 3-game weekend series. See you at the Bart.